Okay, welcome
Welcome,
to
Vice City.
the Vice
Say
City
it.
podcast. This is episode 6.
It is
And what are we talking about today?
coronavirus.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. We're not.
Amidst the coronavirus, right? Amidst the coronavirus quarantine, stay away from your friends and family. I recommend just sitting in your house and putting all 6 of our episodes on repeat, and we can be all the friends you need.
That's right. Basically, do what you usually do, but now someone is telling you to do it.
Yeah. Or,
Basically.
yeah. So stay at home and listen to us.
That's right.
It. So, episode 6, we are talking about who Phil Schneider is and what are D.U.M.s.
Dun 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 dun.
Not dumps, D.U.M.s. D.U.M.B.s. I want to be like, D.U.M.B.s. Like, can you imagine those old school television shows where the letters come flying out the screen? It's like,
Oh, yeah.
da 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 da, like D.U.M.B.s.
Or like, the word today is D.U.M.s, brought to you by the letter D.
So, okay, getting right into it.
Let's try.
What are D.U.M.s?
I don't know.
I want to start with what D.U.M.s are. I don't want to
Please.
talk about Phil Schneider yet.
Of course.
What are D.U.M.s? So for those of you that don't know, D.U.M.s stand for, it's an acronym. It stands for Deep Underground Military Bases. Deep Underground Military Bases. So D.U.M., and then the S is because it's plural, obviously. So these were actually theorized a long time ago. They were a big conspiracy theory that the United States government and other governments across the world had military bases basically inside in mountainsides and underground. And it came out that there are in fact real. They are basically secure and they're practical for defensive and secretive reasons. They're out of sight. They're unable to be targeted by aircraft or warheads. It makes a lot of sense why they'd want them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's non-military uses for them too. Storage vaults, you need some sort of secure, isolated storage for computer servers.
Seeds.
Seeds, well, they have like, for example, the seed vault. I don't remember where that is. If
Oh,
it's-
that's in like Europe, Northern Europe, like Norway.
yeah.
So like somewhere where it's cold as fuck, always.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking of like a practical use that isn't so
Oh, perhaps like a DNA bank for all like the life in the earth. Who
something
knows?
like that.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
but,
they've done
something
that.
that's not so malevolent. Like for example, like I was saying, computer servers for these huge financial institutions. You can't necessarily have computer servers on like the East Coast where it's susceptible to hurricanes,
Word.
or on the West Coast where it's susceptible to earthquakes, where it can damage that sort of infrastructure. So it kind of makes sense that if you have the resources to build these or to pay for somebody to build them, that you would do it.
Sorry.
Yeah, just knock the mic
I'm sorry.
over.
I'm sorry.
Fuck.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So a famous D.U.M. that sort of came around and that sort of reaffirmed or confirmed the fact that these were not a conspiracy theory and were in fact reality was NORAD. NORAD is the entrance to NORAD is in a mountainside. It's located in the Cheyenne Mountains in Colorado. You could Google it and you can see that literally it's a chain link fence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tunnel that goes straight into a mountain and it does not come out on the other end. So it basically goes into the mountain and underground. So the way these kind of got... Oh, actually, I should say that NORAD, just for those of you that don't know, NORAD is the North American Aerospace Defense Command. It's a bilateral defense alliance between the United States and Canada to defend the airspace for both countries. Mm-hmm. So just, in case nobody knew what that was. So the idea of D.U.M.s, like I said, it used to be a conspiracy theory. And a lot of people started submitting Freedom of Information Acts requests to reveal, in fact, that they do and they do exist. When the government sort of picked up that a lot of people were interested in this, they started to go back and redact a lot of information pertaining to the location and how they are constructed, right? Because they can't let everybody know, hey, we've got these deep underground military bases in like 12 states, and they're in a, town near you, right? You can't, I kind of agree that there's some secrets that the government needs to keep for, in fact, national security. It kind of makes sense. You can't let everybody know everything.
Okay.
But so, nevertheless, they exist. All right. Most of the information about them has been, revealed. And another interesting thing about them is how they're actually constructed. The technology to bore holes deep in mountainsides, even deep underground, it exists. And the crazy thing is it's existed for decades. You can actually Google the patent for this technology. Just so you know, the way they do it is they have. I'm just gonna smack the mic here.
Just like I did.
Yeah, it's
why
okay.
not? Slap that bitch.
The way this works is they have giant boring machines. It's basically like a big. If you took a can, boring, super boring, Snoozeville, right? Am I right, guys? But it's basically if you took like a can of tomato soup and you sort of elongated it and you expanded it out so it had a diameter of about 52 feet or 57 feet. I forget how big the biggest one is. But a 57-foot diameter tunnel boring machine. The front of it is more or less a flat face with a bunch of drill bits. And what it does is it crushes up the rock. So you put it up against the rock face and it crushes up the rock and it's superheated. The front of it's superheated to liquefy the rock. And as it bores into the, this rock face, it pushes this liquid out around the sides, sort of filling in the cracks and, cooling off and hardening the rock. So it creates this really sleek tunnel that requires no extra, maybe a little bit of extra infrastructure to secure it, but it doesn't create a lot of debris. If you like a traditional digging and you had like an excavator, you would have a lot of rocks because you'd be just pulling all that shit out of the earth and piling them up somewhere else.
Right.
So this sort of you don't have that, right? And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's great, especially for espionage, on the world stage where everybody's watching each other through spy satellites and all of that. And one of the ways they see what's going on with other countries is that they look at the satellite imagery and they say, oh, hey, there's these huge piles of rocks building and building and building up over the course of months. They must be digging something. Well, this technology that's gone. Nobody can tell.
For the Miamians listening, or Floridians actually, we had that machine being brought to Miami Beach to make the tunnel that goes to the port, from the port to the city. Do you remember that?
No, I don't, but I know that
I saw it when they brought it. It was gigantic.
The most famous one, which I think is the only one that they use in public, it was nicknamed Bertha.
Bertha, there we go. Yeah, I had it like a weird
Bertha.
lady. No offense to the Berthas out there, but what a weird name for a giant machine.
Bertha just sounds like a gigantic woman. You don't want to fuck with Bertha.
No, not really. Yeah, it was ginormous.
Bertha's diameter was 57 feet.
Holy shit.
You go outside and you see a 5-story building. It was 7 feet long, taller than that.
I remember. I
huge.
remember
It's
seeing
huge.
it when they were bringing it and they were putting it into the ground.
Yeah.
To start making the tunnel. I've never taken that tunnel. That thing freaks me out.
No, I mean it doesn't.
I bet it's
bother me.
safe, but it's still
Of course.
the fact that there's so much water above you. I don't know.
Yeah, well, so like I said before, if you want, you can Google the patent on this. The patent number is 3693731. So you can read it yourself. It was labeled a method and apparatus for tunneling by melting. So the way it's described is it's a machine and method for drilling boreholes and tunnels by melting, in which a housing is provided for supporting a heat source and a heated end portion in which the necessary melting heat is delivered to the walls of the end portion at a rate sufficient to melt rock, and during operation of which the molten material may be disposed adjacent the boring zone in cracks in the rock and as a vitreous wall lining of the tunnel so formed.
What the
The
fuck does that mean? Can you
Oh,
please
and the heat
simplify
source
that?
can be electrical, or nuclear. But for deep drilling, it's preferably a nuclear reactor. So these things have a nuclear reactor, mini nuclear reactor inside of them. So what means is, like I explained before, it's a gigantic machine that crushes the rock, turns the rock into dust on the face, and the face is superheated to liquefy that rock, to heat it up. And like I said, it pushes it out along the sides and fills in the cracks on that tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And it creates sort of like a smooth surface. And this patent was filed by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission in 1971.
That's fucking crazy.
Which means that we've had this technology, at least in the public space or public knowledge, per this patent for the last 50 years, which means we've had it for probably a lot longer than that. So to explain a little bit more, for example, for rocks, I want to go into a little bit of detail about this. Igneous rocks, which are one of the three main rock types, it's basically formed through the cooling and the solidification of magma, so lava. That kind of rock melts at about 1200 degrees Celsius. So 2192 Fahrenheit for my American brothers and sisters. In the case of the rock melting drill of the present invention, in which the penetrator phase must be maintained at about 1500 K or Kelvin, or 1227 degrees Celsius, or 2240 degrees Fahrenheit, for extended operational periods, and the heat source is many centimeters away. So what does that mean? That means that face with the drills is constantly at 2240 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's always melting this kind of igneous rock. And what else did I say? So the heat is basically on the front, and it doesn't extend much further than a few centimeters away, right? Because it's constantly pressed against this rock. Depending on the metals that they use for the heat source, right? Because however they heat it with whatever kind of metals that they use, they can actually increase the temperature up to 1800 degrees Celsius or 3320 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fucking hot.
Yeah.
It's basically like mobile hell on wheels. It's got a tunneling speed of 100 meters per day, which is crazy.
What? 1,000 or 100?
100 meters. Well, I mean, in the grand scope of in the grand scale of things, 100 meters a day doesn't sound like a lot.
No, that's a lot.
But when you're boring through rock,
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's crazy. Like I was saying before, the reasons to have this kind of technology goes beyond military bases. Like I said, perhaps nuclear shelters, locations for secure supercomputer sites, medical or agricultural storage facilities, protection from espionage, secret resource procurement sites, things like that. Like I wouldn't be surprised if some of the ultra wealthy have some sort of underground bunker. The president, high level, super elite VIPs of the country, I'm sure they've got some sort of underground, base or hideaway that they can get away to. So the next question is how does the government pay for this? Where does this money come from?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I have a story about that.
You do?
Yeah. One time I remember reading about the black budget, like all that money that goes to the government and nobody really knows what it's used for. So I remember reading an article where the IRS asked for some documents to I think it was the CIA I think it was the CIA. And the CIA disclosed the funniest thing. It was a list of projects and how much money they were putting per project. And one of them was the mass of ducks. Stupid. I mean, I'm gonna give you dumb examples because I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was things like the mass of a duck, how fast can grass grow, just dumb things like that. That you would be like, why in the hell are they wasting $3 million on knowing how heavy a duck is? It was something stupid like that. I'm just giving you a really dumb example.
No, but that sounds like something that they need to give an answer for.
Of course, because they're not going to tell you, it's $2 million for the grace.
Yeah, it's nobody
You
wants
know?
someone to believe you're spending $3 million to watch ducks fucking grass grow. You know?
Exactly.
So, but I'm sure they got to give something to it. But you kind of hit the nail on the head,
So funny
right?
though. Yeah.
The black budget is where the funding for a lot of this comes from, and through our tax dollars. Coming from Edward Snowden, I'm sure you know who Edward Snowden is,
everybody
right?
knows
Yeah,
who that
everybody
is.
knows who
Poor
Edward
kid.
Snowden is. He reported that the black budget is around $52.6 billion,
Jesus Christ.
which is a fuckload of money. But some reports are stating that it's even higher than that. Where can some of these be found? I only have about 14 or 13 examples just in Arizona alone. The alleged location is Fort Huachaca, I hope I said that right, in Arizona, Gila Mountain area near Yuma in Arizona, Page, Arizona, Safford, Arizona, and 9 others just in Arizona
That's crazy.
alone. The existence of D.U.M.b.s works well with many conspiracy theories or theories that discuss aliens living underground, such as reptilians or other species of alien or other creatures. This is because the U.S. has a known extensive cave system that basically reaches throughout almost the entire nation. And I don't know if you remember, we saw that Missing 411 documentary.
Yeah.
Right? And this is one of the things that he talked about. That a lot of people go missing in our national parks and these forests, which so happen to be located above entrances to these underground cave systems that go across the U.S. So there's a lot of belief that these D.U.M.bs tap into these cave systems to sort of have a high speed or maybe a clandestine or secretive way to travel across the country to other bases underneath the earth.
Okay.
Or, it plays into these theories. It kind of fits pretty well into that, right? You got a lot of people missing in the forests.
Yeah.
Not a lot of reporting on it from the National Park Services. You're talking about deep underground military bases, which we have the technology to make them, tapping into natural caverns. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's not that far out there to think that we would utilize something like that. So, with that, we now talk about who Phil Schneider is.
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. You want me to tell you who Phil Schneider is? You tell me who.
I have no problem
Jesus Christ! Like,
telling you who Phil
yes,
Schneider
please
is.
tell me.
I first heard about Phil Schneider many, many years ago. When I used to listen to Coast with Art Bell, which if you go back on YouTube and listen to his shows, they are awesome. But I believe he had mentioned him once. But here, let's. I want to go through his history before I just start,
Yeah.
just start like exploding out, because I want to get all this shit out of my head about him because he's very interesting, but I don't want to have, I need to get the shit out, right?
Get it out. Get it
So,
out.
who is Phil Schneider? First of all, let me tell you that if anybody told you being a geologist is a boring job, you can go kick them in the fucking nuts, because this guy was a fucking geologist and he had a crazy, exciting career.
Yep.
And I believe it's true. So, Phil Schneider, he was a geologist.
He was like Indiana Jones, but for the government people.
Kind of. And he looked at rocks instead of, so.
Who said rocks are boring? Shit.
Yeah, seriously, who said rocks were boring? This makes me want to be a geologist. Phil Schneider was a geological and structural engineer with both military and aerospace applications, with a particular expertise in explosives and their effect on geological structures. So basically, this guy would go in and look at rocks and figure out the best way to blow them up or to cut through them.
Yeah.
Right? It was his job, basically, like I just said, to evaluate rock strata below the surface and determine... Why can't I talk? What the fuck?
I don't know.
To evaluate rock strata below the surface and determine what formations existed at certain depths. So he'd go down in these tunnels and he'd say, okay, well, given this clay and this igneous rock and the way it's compacted, right, we could use a drill, or we could use these explosives, or a tunnel boring machine, right? This would involve Phil constantly being lowered down into bored out deep shafts to observe layers of sedimentary and igneous rocks, which would then determine what kind of excavation he should use. From there, he would give his recommendations to construction teams. Phil was most known for basically exposing government D.U.M.b.s, like we just talked, and the alien agenda. So that's a kind of a curveball there, right? D.U.M.b.s are something that's in the realm of possibility, and then all of a sudden, and the alien agenda, by the way. Wink, wink.
I have two things to add to the alien thing, but keep going. I'll tell you later.
Okay. So, he was born on April 23rd in 1947. His father was Oscar Schneider and his mother was Sally Schneider. Oscar was a captain. This is pretty interesting. Oscar was a captain in the U.S. Navy. He worked in nuclear medicine. He helped design the first nuclear submarine, and was claimed to be involved in the Philadelphia experiment. So for those of you that don't know, it might be something that we cover at some point in the future.
Oh, we totally should. That's fascinating what happened over there. It's fascinating. Like, that's the experiment where they tried to make some Navy ship invisible.
Yeah. So basically, the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment supposed to have been carried out by the U.S. Navy at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in Philadelphia. This occurred sometime around October 28th in 1943, and the ship that they used in this experiment was the USS Eldridge. It was claimed to have been made invisible, rendered completely invisible, or cloaked, whatever you want to say, to enemy devices, to vision, like it completely disappeared. The experiment was allegedly based on an aspect of some form of the unified field theory from Albert Einstein. It was basically that the unified field theory was a class of potential theories that were sort of pushed to, grouped together. Such theories aimed to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated nature of the forces of electromagnetism and gravity, basically uniting those respective fields, right? Gravity and electromagnetism into a single field. According to some unspecified researchers, air quotes, right?
Right.
They said that they used large electrical generators to bend light around the object via refraction so that it became completely invisible. So some people say that they teleported, and this is where the experiment is actually really interesting. Some say they teleported the ship somewhere. And teleported it back with the entire crew on it, and it completely fucked the crew up. Like some of the crew were stuck sideways in the walls.
They were like melted into the ship,
missing limbs. Like they found half a soldier's body on the deck and the other half underneath in a cabin, like crazy shit.
People going insane.
They went mad.
That's terrible, man. Poor people. So
some people say that happened. Some people say that it never left and they just bent the light around it. Obviously,
I'm sure that
making it invisible.
Every single person that participated on that experiment, it's living or has been living in some underground thing. I don't think they killed them all, but I'm sure that they erased them from society one way or another. Because you don't want those people talking about that stuff. Especially if you're the government.
Or you're going to be suicided, right?
Exactly.
I killed him. He killed himself.
I killed myself, without having any gunpowder residue in my hand.
Yeah, exactly. And I shot myself in the back of the head 3 times, right? I killed myself. Come on.
I shot myself in the chest.
Why would you question that? What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Duh. Of course I killed myself.
Exactly.
No suicide note? 3 shots to the back of my head.
That's right.
Duh. So his father was claimed to be part of this experiment. He was also claimed to be part of Operation Crossroads, which was responsible for testing nuclear weapons in the Bikini Atoll, which did happen.
I know.
Right? We tested those. So Phil's father was deep in black operations and projects with the U.S. government. It's not really a stretch to think that if he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, it would be that hard, right? You have somebody like Oscar Schneider, who allegedly is part of these super top secret missions. Oh, hey, by the way, my son's a geologist.
Do you think that people that are involved in like super secret experiments and they're, because these people have to be extremely intelligent. So do you think that they like trace their lineage and then somehow one way or another they get a hold of their children and then they have them work for them later? I mean, this guy was a genius, right? Like I'm pretty sure that they were the government is listening to this right now, so I'm sure that they were like tracing.
Personally, I don't think. Maybe they might go out of their way to try and recruit him, but not so hardcore. But more likely, I think a better scenario is that his son I'm sure he knew his dad worked in the military, right?
Right.
And let me tell you, Phil Schneider. Go look up the documentaries about him on YouTube. Very easy. Type in Phil Schneider. This guy bleeds red, white, and blue. He was a Southern. He was like a Midwestern, hardcore to the death American patriot.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, being overtly patriotic, but this man fucking loved. He fucking loved this country.
Yeah.
Like. I have no doubt in my mind that this guy, without a doubt, would lay down his life if it meant doing some sort of good for the country.
That's why he did what he did.
Yeah, exactly. That explains why he did what he did.
Yeah.
So, his father's in the military. As a boy, I'm sure he looked up to his father and wanted to be in the military too. Not that hard for his father to be like, hey, by the way, my son's in the military. Let's get him involved in this. Because they're going to want that. I would imagine the U.S. government would want, they have this man who's incredibly intelligent, who's on all these top secret black operations, and now his son is sort of following in his footsteps. Let's get him in, right? Because now they've got the entire family under their thumb, right?
Yeah.
Right, easy, it's easy, right? This is all part of national security. Don't say anything. And somebody like Phil Schneider, I totally believe it.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not going to say a fucking thing because this is the good for my nation. So Phil Schneider, he was a geologist, structural engineer. He worked for a company called Morrison Knudsen. This company is still, I think it's still around, or I think it was bought out by somebody else a couple of years ago. But the company was involved in the construction of the Hoover Dam, the San Francisco to Oakland Bay Bridge, the NASA Vehicle Assembly Building, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, airfields, supply depots, Minutemen missile silos, NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Orlando. It was also one of the largest passenger rail car builders in America. And they were tapped to build the deep underground military bases for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Navy. That kind of makes sense. I mean, you can easily look up and see the kind of projects this company did.
They built NASA, for crying out loud. Like, of course.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, so when somebody like Phil Schneider's like, yeah, these kind of bases, these kind of bases do exist, and then you look at the company that he works for, and you find out that they're making missile silos.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, no shitty company is gonna be contracted to build something like that. Like, to me, out of this whole repertoire of like things that they've made, the whole NASA thing seems pretty impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, so it's not, again, so just from what we're reading. I can't really say that this is too far out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
I mean, already his credentials, where he's worked, what his father's done. I mean, it kind of makes sense. This is another interesting thing. it was not until after Phil had begun taking Social Security benefits in 1981 that it came out that Phil had actually been using two different Social Security numbers. His real one had been used to collect benefits, but a fake one was used for the entire time he was working for the U.S. government, which is about 17 years as a geologist and structural engineer on specifically black projects. Which is also kind of, I mean, that also makes sense. So you'd imagine you have somebody in top secret.
Of course, they're gonna give you a fake identity.
Yeah, you don't want somebody, you're tracing your link, saying, oh, who's that, and tracing. Yeah, so he's got two Social Security numbers, which again, this is fact.
Can you imagine working for secrets in a secretive way for the government, and then all of a sudden, oh fuck, somebody stole my identity, and they went to Walmart and spent $3,000 on shit.
On toilet paper.
God damn it.
My toilet paper. Phil Schneider, red flags, buying all the fucking toilet paper.
Seriously. Then Phil has to use like Credit Karma to fix his credit with that fake Social Security number.
So, one of the reasons he said that he actually did have two Social Security numbers, but beyond, I mean, the obvious to me is just more secrecy, is that he claimed to have one of the highest security clearances in the world, and this was called Rhyolite 38 security clearance.
I wonder what it's called now.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it just sounds pretty cool. Rhyolite 38.
Rhyolite sounds like some kind of rock.
I think it is. I remember reading about it. That rhyolite is some sort of like mineral or rock. I don't know. Maybe
Makes
it's
sense.
a special geologist security
Maybe
clearance.
it's the name of a rock near the mantle of the Earth, really close to like, is it the mantle? No, like really near the like nucleus of the planet.
The core of the planet?
Like the core, yeah, because that rock is super duper like hard and.
I don't know.
I'm just talking shit out of my ass. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So yeah, so he claimed that his security clearance that he had was Rhyolite 38. Okay, so why did Phil decide to go public? After all of this, he'd been working with the government for 17 years. He'd been deep in the shit in these black operations, seeing things that people would never even imagine existed, and he decides to go public. Why? He decided to go public after the murder of his friend Ron Rummel. One of 11 he believed were also murdered. So, who was Ron? Ron was an ex-Air Force intelligence agent who went public with highly classified information in a publication he called the Alien Digest. So, Phil had a friend, Ron Rummel, ex-Air Force intelligence, had an Alien Digest where he sort of divulged all these secrets about the U.S. government keeping from aliens, and the Alien blah.
Hello.
So the Alien Digest. Oh my
There he goes
fucking
again.
God.
Just spit it out. So, there you go.
So the Alien Digest was, I don't know if they're still doing it, but it was a real publication. You can actually look up the older volumes of it. Okay. Of course, Ron's murder was declared a suicide. He was found on August 6th, 1993. He shot himself in the mouth. Okay? I mean, that seems pretty in line. You're going to kill yourself with a gun. You pop it in your mouth and off yourself, right? So, his friends say that no blood was found on the pistol. The handle of the gun had no fingerprints on it.
Yep.
The suicide note was analyzed and discovered it was written by a left-handed person, while, can you believe it, Ron was right-handed. Then the sweat on his body smelled of sodium pentothal. It's pretty interesting. His body never had an autopsy. It was never performed. His body was rushed to cremation days after he was found dead. So, I mean,
suspicious.
It's super suspicious, right? A good friend of Phil. Phil knew what this guy was on about, and then all of a sudden he's dead under mysterious circumstances, right? So, moving on.
Oh, by the way, I found out what rhyolite means.
What?
It's a kind of
Igneous?
igneous rock.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, made mostly out of silica, and it's very similar to granite.
Okay.
And
That sounds pretty hard.
yeah, and it's the main rock found in very viscous lava, and it's near the nucleus of the
The core.
Earth. The core. Nucleus. It's the same thing. Think of the cell.
They don't call it the nucleus
I
of the
call it
planet?
nucleus. It's the nucleus.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about they.
I don't give
Do
three
they
fucks.
call it that?
Who gives a shit? I don't care. Nucleus, motherfuckers.
So,
Nucleus.
let's keep going
That's
with Mr. Phil Schneider.
Yes,
fuck
sir.
my notes. Okay, there we go. So, back to the black budget. So, Phil claims the U.S. actually has a black budget of about $500 billion
Jesus fuck.
every single year. He
I was
claim-
gonna say every single day. I'm like,
Every
where the
single
fuck is all that
fucking
money
day.
coming
Imagine,
from?
Where do you fucking? How do you
Throw
even
me
spend that much money?
$1,000, please.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this fucking money's coming from, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
He claims that it's $500 billion a year, or it's roughly about a quarter of the GNP of the U.S., the gross national product.
Jesus
and
Christ.
just to reference, just for shits and giggles,
Shits and giggles, people.
the 2019 gross national product of the United States was $19.4 trillion, which would mean if he was right to this day where they're using about a quarter of that to fund their black projects, you're looking at a budget of about $5 trillion.
It's so hard to wrap your
You
mind
can't even
around
know.
that number.
No. I mean these numbers are so huge. It's
What do you
insanity.
do with $1 trillion?
You can't, how do you fathom that? I can't.
How would you spend $1 trillion?
A trillion?
A trillion. Trillion.
I don't even
Nucleus.
Is a trillion is something like what, $1,000 billion?
That's fucking
It's
crazy.
fucking insane. I can't even like how that's I don't know. I'm speechless.
You could give everybody some money and you would still be rich.
You could fucking give everybody like $10 million
And you
you'd
would still
fucking
have a
like
shitload of money.
billions of dollars left. I hope my math is right on that one.
Cross those fingers. But still, you could give people money to where they would have a really good life, and you will still be rich.
Yeah, but then nobody would work. So then there would be no GM. Where the fuck would work if you give everybody the money?
Well, I mean, good point.
I don't know. So,
All right.
So yeah, Phil he went on and on. He said that the budget, it's not monitored by Congress. It's mainly financed by the CIA,
Yeah.
the CIA drug operations, the NSA, the DEA, and possibly the FBI. Now,
Amazing.
how a geologist knows all this is beyond me. But then again, I mean, his background kind of checks out. I mean, any layman, any regular Joe Schmo can go and fucking look.
I kind of picture him like he's the little geologist, and then he's in all the meetings, and he's very quiet, and then he's hearing all these things, and I mean, they need
He's
him.
just like soaking it in.
So yeah, exactly. He's kind of like the fly on the wall, but they need him to be there because they need him.
Because he needs to be part of. He needs to understand what's happening.
So therefore, by default, he's learning all this shit that, like, as in a daily basis, is blowing his mind. Can you imagine that? And then little by little, like, because it's like if you're looking through a peephole for him, right? So then, as he's starting to learn things, that peephole starts to disappear, and his vision starts to get wider and wider and wider. And then he saw the whole picture, and that's why he's talking.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and what he's saying, it kind of makes sense, right? He says that a lot of the money's generated by taxpayers. Okay, I get that. And which I believe. I'm sure some of our money goes to the black budget.
It'll be funny that if you pay your pay stubs as Social Security, federal tax,
and then black budget. Actually, that'd be pretty dope. A little bit more transparent.
Yeah.
I'm paying for the black budget, bitches. You know. So, but I mean, we all know that the CIA has been heavily involved in trafficking drugs.
Absolutely.
France, 1947 to 1951. 1950s Southeast Asia, 1950 to 1970 Indochina, 1973 to 1980 Australia, 1970 through the 1980s Panama, the 1980s all over Central America, Haiti, Afghanistan, introducing crack into hard areas and neighborhoods of the United States. I mean, is it that unheard of? I mean, where's that money going to begin with that they're making?
NWO, my friends, New World Order.
Or black budgets. There you go. I mean, I mean, it's not that unbelievable. I mean, these are all conspiracies. I mean, the CIA drug trafficking conspiracies, you can go look up now, and they've been confirmed. I mean, fuck, they're even glorifying it in movies.
Yeah.
Wasn't Tom Cruise just in a movie where he was picked up by the CIA
Yeah.
and recruited to be a drug mule, to traffic, narcotics from South America or Central America, I don't remember, into the U.S.? I mean, it's happened.
I'm never gonna stop saying it. Reality is stranger than fiction,
Yeah,
my friends.
no, and I mean, it's lunacy,
Yep.
So,
Yep.
anyways. So Phil went on to claim that as of 1995, there were 131 active deep underground military bases.
That's a
D.U.M.B.s.
shitload.
D.U.M.B.s in the U.S. alone. So 131 in the U.S. alone.
That's a lot.
That's over if you divided that up over
That's
the
almost
states.
two bases per state.
It's more than two
More.
bases per state.
Yeah.
It was what it averages it out to. From 1995.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. That's what,
It's
30
nuts.
1995 was like 25 years ago?
Yeah.
So I
Wait.
mean think
Yeah.
it's like-
Wait.
wait a second. 96, 97, 98, 99.
2021. I picture that meme of that lady with all the equations.
Fucking all the equations, the triangles, the geometry, and the trigonometry.
Yes.
A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Fucking like 25 years, I got it.
Oh, shit. I love that meme so much.
Oh, shit. So he said in 95 there were 131 alone in the U.S. and over 1,400 in the world. He estimated that each base costs about $17 to $19 billion to build, and because the methods to build them are so advanced that he believes that about 2 can be built every year.
That's still a lot.
That's a fucking lot.
That's not. It's
a lot.
It's a lot. It's an underground motherfucking base. Like, for the general knowledge of the public, that's not that easy to do. And they're busting 2 a year like it's nothing.
But how many people have to be involved in this?
A lot.
Yeah.
And how much, like, okay, here's another thing about the black budget that I'm thinking about. It's not just to invest in the technology and the engineering and the machinery, but it's also to buy the silence of probably millions of people.
No. You don't need to
think
buy.
so?
No, you don't need to buy silence.
What, you just-
At least, so there are very.
How are you gonna keep those people quiet?
So let me tell you. So let me mansplain this to you.
I'm gonna manspread for this. Hold on.
Oh yeah, this spread it. Ooh,
All right.
girl.
I'm manspreading
There
right
you
now.
go.
Do
Ooh,
it.
So wide.
So fucking creepy. All right, go.
Oh yeah, spread it, girl.
Ew.
Ooh, that's my fetish.
Ew.
Smell those farts.
Ew. Ew.
No, okay.
That's
okay.
a real thing.
Time
Oh
to
my God.
time to
All right.
grim up. All right.
Let's get serious. Let's get serious.
So, I'd imagine there are very, very, very few amount of people that I'd say you have to pay for their silence. I'm assuming the people who would be in the position to need to be paid off are willingly taking a part of it and understand
What
the
it is.
seriousness of what they're doing. Now, everybody else, for example, the workers, the construction workers, it's known that information is compartmentalized, right? You don't need to know more than beyond what your job is.
Right.
If I'm just here to dig a hole, I come in, I dig a hole, and then I leave. And the guy behind me who attaches a device comes in, doesn't see me, attaches the device, and leaves. And the person who's got the job after him comes in. That's how you compartmentalize it. So You're not exposing Melissa, the construction worker, to the advanced alien society underneath the United States mountain ranges, okay? Right? You come in and you say, this is the spot where we should begin digging, and then Melissa gets on a plane and she leaves. And then Mario comes in and says, okay, here, I'm going to put my drill here, and I'm going to turn it on, and I drill down. I got the hole to the depth it should be. Everything's good. I pull my drill up, and out I go. And then Joe Schmo comes in.
That makes sense.
Goes down into the hole, and and that's how they do it.
That
right?
makes sense.
And this is what they do across the government. I'm sure governments all over the world, because it has to be
I
done.
have a funny question. What about all the janitors in all these underground bases? They need janitors.
Oh,
how are they gonna buy their secrecy?
Some juicy tidbits for that.
And
you think the janitors leave these bases?
Maybe
the janitors
don't
fucking leave. They stay there. Their families gone.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. I don't know.
But let me think about it, because it's not just a person like the scientist.
Hold on. I'll touch on that in a little bit. I'll touch on it.
Shit. Okay.
I'll touch on the janitors specifically in a little bit. I'm serious. I'm not joking.
I was thinking like all those jobs that are the base for things to be able to run. Like,
no, but just as a side note, for Area 51, if you watch some documentaries about it, and people who have worked there and who've come out, they get to, it's really interesting. They go to the airport to fly to the base, and you'll see them walk onto the airstrip and get on an unmarked airplane, like a completely all-white airplane, and they leave all their shit behind and they fly off to the base.
That's fucking nuts.
So, I mean, I'd imagine working in areas like this, you're drinking the juice.
You have to.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, think about how many people have come forward about, Bob Lazar came forward about Area 51, and I think a couple of people after him, like decades later.
Yeah.
Phil Schneider came forward about the D.U.M.B.s and the alien agenda. Not a lot of people do. And I'm sure the people that want to, that aren't as successful, ended up being suicided. Or some people just take the secret to their graves.
How horrible. Like, your whole life you worked in a place like that. Then they're like, okay, bye. We don't need you to clean the floor anymore. Bye. But hey, if you say something, I will fucking kill you and all your family.
I don't think they have
to. No, but I bet that they have to know that there's a risk, or either.
Oh, of course. But I'm sure that they're also taken care of.
But here's what I'm thinking. Okay, they're taken care of, but they're taken care of in trade of their secrecy, right?
Well, yeah.
Or they have gone through they don't even know it, some mind reprogramming, and they have been made to forget everything that they have experienced.
See, I think that the simpler solution is probably the better answer.
Just to pay them
to
and
monitor them.
the
program.
whole...
You kind of risk them losing whatever information that they have in their head that the government actually needed.
No, but I'm just talking janitors and cooks and people
I don't think they bring in regular Joe Schmoes for that. I think like I said, it's probably compartmentalized, right?
Do you think it's all like military personnel?
They have it's military personnel. They have the food brought in. The guy who delivers it leaves. Then somebody from the base brings it, from the base brings it down and distributes it. You get what I'm saying?
I imagine
that's how they break it up. So you don't have 1,000 fucking people peeping in on your secrets.
Can you imagine if they make like a contract? The government makes a contract with like the company that makes like Lean Cuisine or something like that. And they
Lean Cuisine
for 5 years. That's all they eat. Nah,
Area 51 cafeteria.
Cafe steamers. Yes, this is getting better.
Yeah. So.
Oh, my nose.
No, but I believe that they don't do anything that might jeopardize the information or the skill set that these people have.
Right?
The easiest thing is, hey, you know what? Come in and do this. You'll only know up to ABC. You don't need to know DEFGH, whatever the rest of the alphabet is.
Yeah.
You only need to know A through C. That's it. Do your 20 years. We'll continue to pay you $250,000 a year as your pension or whatever until the day you die. Have a good day. And you better believe that there are a lot of people who will keep their fucking mouth shut. I would. Why risk that?
Yeah. Unless you knew something was real fucked up and you have balls of steel and you don't care about dying.
Well, yeah. Fuck me. It's not about me. It would be about my family, which you better believe. I'm sure it's like, hey, keep your fucking mouth shut or your family's going to have a big problem, right? Little Susie going to middle school. We know where she's at, right? So.
Yeah.
So, Phil, going back to Phil.
Sorry.
Phil claims he's worked at Area 51 and the S4 facility in Groom Lake in Nevada, and also Los Alamos in New Mexico. In his words, the bases are large cities underground, with nine bases under Area 51 alone, with Idaho being home to 11 more bases. So 9 under Area 51 and 11 in Idaho.
So that's what they got underneath all those potatoes, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Damn. Fucking D.U.M.B.s and potatoes. That's all I got. So this is also another interesting. I mean, this is all interesting, but there's a couple things really just stand out. Mm-hmm. Phil also claimed back when he was touring in the early '90s. Phil claimed that all of or most of the D.U.M.B.s in the U.S.
Sorry, that was my butt. I just needed to sit on something. I'm sitting on your. Can I sit on that?
Oh, you're sitting on the safe?
Yes, and my butt tried to open it.
That's what that noise was?
Yeah.
The fuck was
I'm
that?
sorry.
So, Phil claims that most, if not all of the U.S. bases and underground bases are connected by a magneto-leviton train system. What is that? That's a magnetic high-speed train.
But everybody says that you can't make it.
Well, no. Japan, South Korea, and China now have them.
Yeah, but it's not that fast.
They can get up to like 300 miles an hour.
Oh, for real?
It's super fucking fast.
I didn't know it was that fast.
But that was in the last decade or 15 years.
Yeah.
Phil was saying this in 1990.
That's crazy.
Right? Like 5 to 10 years before this actually became something that the public could use.
That's crazy.
Which was like, what the fuck? That's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the trains that he claims that the U.S. uses can reach up to Mach 2. So Mach 2 is twice the speed of sound.
God damn.
Right? So you're talking about 1,500 miles an hour, right? Because I think the speed of sound is something like 740 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So they go around these trains in a circuit going around 1,500 miles an hour, which is insane. At the time of his lectures, there were no high-speed maglev trains anywhere being used by the public. They're just recently being used, like I said, in Japan, South Korea, and China, and they top out at around 300 miles an hour. So, how long have maglev trains been around? Patents for maglev trains were issued as early as 1937. So the potential for this technology to have been around, I mean, even predates the Roswell crash in Nevada, which I think was in the 50s.
That was in the 50s, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
That's fucking nuts. And also makes me think of, okay, that's 1937.
Yeah.
What the fuck were we doing at the turn of the century? So whatever we see in history books, it's like a nick of what was actually happening. Think about it. If that's going on in 1937.
But this plays into the theme that the military industrial complex is like 50 or so years, maybe even 100 years more advanced than what's available, the technology available in the public sector.
That's fucking scary.
But again, that makes sense, right? Are they going to give people in mass are kind of dumb. They're reactionary. They follow each other. They kind of panic.
We have a perfect proof of that right now with the fucking lack of toilet paper throughout the goddamn world. I don't know how.
Fucking started.
No, that
you
shit's
can't
fucking
eat
ridiculous.
toilet paper, right?
And you're gonna stuff it in your nose,
dude. If you needed fucking 40 rolls of toilet paper in 2 weeks, you should have been seeing a doctor a long time ago.
Absolutely, right? You gotta stop eating all that fiber.
No, but I mean, this is what I mean. You have cutting edge. I mean, like fucking. The sharpest cutting edge technology that's not going to the public until it's been replaced.
That does make sense.
So I mean, it makes sense. Phil claims that the building of D.U.M.B.s is essentially a non-stop effort. All day and all night they're being built. But another crazy thing is he claims that it's all being kept secret from Congress, the authority of Congress. He claims one of the main reasons for the majority of these bases being built is because the of the NWO, or the New World Order,
I believe in that
is
shit.
depending heavily on them. He says that if he had known from the beginning the NWO was involved, that he never would have participated in them.
Poor
He was
Phil.
initially told that the bases were being made for legitimate concerns about national security, which again, I believe. Like, you listen to this guy talk, he is a fucking die-hard American patriot, bleeding red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes off on a little bit of a rant, calling Janet Reno a lesbian and a bunch of other shit. But, I mean, you got to take the good with the bad.
Besides, what that poor guy went through and what you're about to talk about,
Hmm.
I don't fucking blame him.
No, I mean, this guy,
I don't blame him.
This is why I really wanted to talk about him, so more people learn about him, because his background checks out. A lot of the things he says checks out. He might be a little bit off of his rocker, but I mean, he's been through fucking hell and back, according to him. But I mean, he kind of has the proof, right?
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding. You just look at the fucking guy
Yeah.
and you can see. So, I want to talk a little bit about the military-industrial complex, right? So we kind of understand why we have this technology from the 1930s, and it's being released to the public when? 2000? 2005?
15 years ago.
Yeah. So like 2000, 2005, around there. I couldn't really find an exact date of when these high-speed maglev trains were first being used by Japan. But
I remember
I
hearing
remember
on the
when
news.
when it was first announced, right?
I think it was in the late 90s, honestly, because I remember being in Peru and hearing about it.
Yeah, so I mean, but whenever he was talking about this, it was before that was even available to the public, right? So I mean, to even be privy to knowledge like that, it's kind of okay. Well, where did you learn that?
Yeah.
So, the military-industrial complex, what is it? It's said to progress at an estimated 44 years per conventional calendar year, and that a large part of it is influenced by non-human high technology and involvement, which has either been amicably shared with us through treaties and agreements, or captured and recovered by us and later reverse engineered. So, they like Bab, like Bob Lazar said for Area 51, what they did is they captured that downed spaceship,
Yeah.
right, in Roswell, Nevada, and they found the bodies and they reverse engineered it.
Yeah.
Right. I've also heard the same thing about Wi-Fi. The technology for Wi-Fi was reverse engineered from non-human, la 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 la.
And that's the thing for that aircraft, right? That is all black. I forget the name of it.
Oh, the stealth bomber.
I don't know.
The
It's
Blackbird?
the black something. It's
So there's
some kind of like aircraft that
I
it
think
cannot be detected by radar.
I think it. What there's like I think the SR-51.
I don't know. I
can't remember the name, but it's like the super high speed
Super high
jet.
yeah, and it cannot be detected by radar. Something like that.
But that was older. Now we have like those triangle shaped bombers.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which have like all the sharp edges that
Yes.
bounce the radar beams off of it in
Yes.
different directions. A really interesting note about that I think it's called the Blackbird SR-51.
Yes.
No, but that's a different one. I think that was around in the 50s. It was a super high fast, like supersonic stealth jet. The materials that they used to make it or something, they had to fill up the fuel tank with, it's so fucking weird. I remember reading that they had to fill up the fuel tank and that fuel would leak out from the sides of the tank because the ship the plane went so fucking fast that the metal heated up and would expand. So they couldn't build it with all the components completely sealing it. So the gasoline would leak out, and as it was taking off, the metal would expand and completely seal it at that point.
That's crazy.
Some crazy shit. I don't know. I've probably got half of that wrong, but I remember that was real. So
I promise.
So, like I was saying, the military-industrial complex is said to progress at about an estimated 44 years per conventional calendar year for us plebeians,
That's
right?
crazy.
So every plebeian year for us low lives, right? The military industrial technology advances every 44 years, and a large part of it, like I said, is influenced by non-human high technology and assistance. Yeah, so a lot of this information is captured and recovered by us and later reverse engineered. Phil also refers to the Philadelphia experiment and notes why it was capable to render a destroyer-class ship completely invisible and teleported to a different location back in the 40s. Now, he claims that military tech is about 1,200 years. Think about that. 1,000. He claims that it's 1,200 years more advanced than public tech.
So then there's people at this point, they can build a base in outer space. So maybe they already teletransport themselves.
Well, yeah. I mean,
it's 12,000 years into the future.
But you hear all these different theories about that. There's a base on the dark side of the moon, and working in conjunction with aliens,
and that is hollow.
Or the moon is hollow, or that it was man-made by human beings in the future and brought back in time to stabilize the planet, which is why the moon is the exact diameter of the sun to form a perfect eclipse over the Earth, which is something that apparently doesn't happen in nature, and that they theorize that if you were to build an interstellar vessel, what would the best way to build it be? Hollow out an asteroid and propel that through space. I mean, we can go on and on about all these crazy theories. Fucking Death Star. So I mean, he says that it's about 1,200 years more advanced than what we have in public, which is really scary to think about.
Absolutely.
You see things like CERN with their fucking gigantic particle smasher. They found the God particle, the Higgs boson, things like that. I mean this stuff is mind-boggling.
Of course.
So what is the military industrial complex? That phrase, what does it mean? Where did it come from? The phrase was immortalized by outgoing United States President Dwight D. Eisenhower during his January 17th, 1961 farewell address to the nation, right? In his speech, Eisenhower cited the military-industrial complex. It was given as a grave warning to the American people based on his experiences with an unlimited wartime economy, coupled with a political environment as witnessed during and after World War II. The warning being to not let the military-industrial establishment dictate America's actions at home or abroad, for such unchecked power would begin to usurp the inherent freedoms found in the very fabric of our nation. So
sounds like that was like the last person in charge with like the best common sense around.
With his own mind, right?
Like that he was
not
able
being
to make
spoon-fed by his advisors.
Exactly.
Or his handlers, whatever you want to say. So the military-industrial complex is an unofficial phrase used to signify the comfortable relationship that can develop between government entities, namely the defensive entities, and defense-minded manufacturers and organizations. Mm-hmm. This union can produce obvious benefits for both sides, war planners receiving the tools necessary for waging war, while also furthering political interests abroad, while defense companies become the recipients of lucrative multi-million or multi-billion-dollar deals. And now I wouldn't be surprised if these deals reach into the trillions of dollars. So, with that being said, Phil goes on to claim that the D.U.M.B., the Deep Underground Military Base, in Dulce, New Mexico, is one of only 2 bases in the U.S. to have been built for the joint use of both the U.S. government and alien nations, where the exchange of different technologies can be done. So think about that. He says we have a base in New Mexico where alien species and the United States government can go and exchange governments. Exchange technologies.
Take my leader. I will take Donald Trump.
Can you imagine? It's going to be huge. The best alien race ever. The best, the finest that we've ever seen.
Well, I'm not surprised because I've heard things that, without going that far from home, I don't know the name of the Indian tribe, but what about the Indian tribe, like around the New Mexico area, that talk about the ant people that live underground
And the lizard people.
and the
I mean,
lizard
there are a
people?
lot of there's a lot of Indian tribes that described reptilian-looking people coming out from under the ground.
Absolutely. In Peru, there's a story besides El Dorado and all that stuff. There's a myth that when the Inca Empire was going down, a race of people from underground that looked just like us, but they were taller and they were blonde and they were
Ooh,
super.
it sounds like the Palladians.
I know, right? Super intelligent, came and gathered the people that had the wisest people that had the most knowledge, because those old and I'm not just bragging about the Incas because they're from where I'm from, but I'm just talking Mayans, everybody. It's believed that when those civilizations were going down, they came and they gathered all the people that had the astronomical knowledge, the mathematical knowledge, all those people, even the medicine men and women, the shamans,
Yeah, the medicine men.
and they brought them underground. And people in Peru say that when that happened, you could hear the earth roar and open. And then they went, got all these people, brought them underground, and the earth roared again, and a cave closed. You can ask, like, people, indigenous people say...
That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me.
And that's where I'm from. So think about
No,
all
but-
the other countries with ancient civilizations that may have similar stories.
That's the craziest shit to me, is that these are like indigenous people, and these stories came from their ancestors who had no access to the internet
They didn't know what
or
the fuck
YouTube.
it was.
Well, they don't know what the fuck. They're just going by legends,
Exactly.
right? And it's fucking crazy to me that people all over the world, these ancient civilizations from all over the world, have the same depictions or the same kind of story, right, of people emerging from the world. And then you hear things like the hollow earth theory, where the earth is actually hollow, right, and there's another civilization underground.
Damn, there's no nucleus.
And then there's that there is a sort of core, not that the entire earth is hollowed out, but it's that there's so much space underground that is essentially like another planet.
So what is that? Is it a book? No, what is that book?
It's
to the center
no,
of the earth?
it's a book. It's a book too. Travel to the center of the earth.
So
I
that's
think.
in a way that's real.
And I mean, there's people who have tried to go to Antarctica. There's this one Russian guy who tried to form an expedition, and he got turned away the first time by the Russian government, and the second time I think something happened to him when he tried to rent out these these icebreaker ships to go there and to. Because I mean, there's well-known entrances, or that they claim they're well-known entrances into the center of the earth.
Yeah.
Right, and that it's mainly centered around Antarctica, which would also play into the theory as to why Antarctica is essentially a shared non-militarized area.
Yes.
Right, that all the nations are allowed to use it.
Yeah, everybody
no
has a
military
piece.
activity.
Correct.
Right, everybody's got a piece of it.
For scientific research.
It's the only place in the world that's kind of like that. Right, it's very interesting. So Phil's claim. Okay, so back to Phil.
Sorry.
Back to Phil. Phil, back to you. He claims that the Dulce base is supposedly built on top of an already existing natural cavern, as large or larger than Carlsbad caverns, which are the largest and deepest caverns known in the world, which is already being used, which they claim was already being used by reptilian-type humanoids. He also claims that the Dulce base they began building it in 1937-38. The Army Engineers.
That's crazy.
So, now we get into the Dulce. Am I even saying that right?
Dulce.
Is it Dulce or is it Dulce?
You want to say it in Spanish? Dulce.
No, I know. I didn't know if they're saying if they.
Dolce is Italian.
It's not dolce.
Dulce.
But a lot of people say it the other way. Dulce.
Bueno, pero es
I don't
dulce,
know.
coño.
Okay, Jesus.
Caramba.
Be nice. Seriously. So, Dulce, New Mexico. And the Underground War. It sounds like a new Harry Potter movie.
That shit is fucking crazy.
It's crazy. So, sometime in the late 1970s, Phil was working for Morrison Knudsen, right? He was tasked in building an addition to the D.U.M.B. in Dulce, New Mexico. So the deep underground military base already existed, and he was brought in to build an addition to it. He explains that when he began the project, he first felt things were off on the assignment when he noticed the presence of U.S. Delta Force soldiers who were stationed with him, and the construction crew, and the supervision, this is another crazy thing, of the U.S. Secret Service.
Look, I knew about the U.S. Secret Service, but
Hey,
after
they
reading
do
this,
a lot of fucking crazy shit.
Yeah, they
I
do.
didn't even know.
I didn't know that U.S. Delta Force was a real thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So the U.S. Delta Force is a real thing. The Secret Service are involved in all sorts of shit. I didn't even know. I think I found out like 2 years ago that the Secret Service are the ones who monitor all counterfeit money. And they're the ones who go after people who counterfeit money.
Really?
That's one. They're not just around to protect the president. I guess there's a real reason why they're called the Secret Service, because they do a bunch of secret shit.
How can you work for the Secret Service?
Funny enough, you can actually just go and apply for it.
That's weird as fuck.
Well, no, I'm sure it's super intensive, but I'm sure they also pull people from the military, like top performing soldiers.
Well, because I know that at least for the FBI, if you want to work for the FBI, you do need experience as a law enforcement person.
Yeah, probably as a cop.
So I'm sure that if you want to be for the Secret Service, you need some kind of military background. You can't just be like, hey, can I join?
Well, no, because you obviously need some sort of secret security clearance.
Oh,
some
for sure.
high-end security clearance.
Rhyolite 38, motherfuckers.
Fuck. I'm so dope, they gave me Rhyolite 39. Fuck you, Phil. No.
Look, I'm not quite there yet. I'm Granite 72.
I'm just the pebbles outside my house. That's what I am. What do you call those?
Sand 12?
Sand 12. So beginning the job, he already had U.S. Delta Force soldiers and the U.S. Secret Service around, right? Just hanging out, kicking back some brewskis, whatever. Just so you know, the Delta Force units are the Army's 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, hence Delta Force.
What does that mean, though?
They're a super elite force or faction of the special forces.
So what do they use them for? So like if there's a war, they don't go to war, do they?
Okay. So basically the Delta Force, they're kept under a veil of secrecy. And it's funny enough, they've only been, it's only recently that we've known that they exist.
Okay.
Right? Because I mean, you would think you'd want to keep this up super under wraps, but it came out. And I think I remember watching.
Why did it come out? What happened?
No, I don't know what I couldn't find why.
Because I'm thinking,
happened.
if these people are so top secret,
I remember watching on LiveLeak. There was a video where they claimed they were Delta Force operators kidnapping somebody, some like super high value target, and it was filmed from like a CCTV camera, and they just fucking rolled up on this guy in a white van, and it was like a well-oiled machine. They fucking pulled them out, dragged them into their vehicle, and they were gone. Like ghosts. Whoa. It was crazy. So, but I mean, it was only recently that we known about the Delta Force.
Sorry,
right?
I just smacked the mic. Uh-huh.
They utilize a very large core of officers, and they go through super intense, very specialized and intense training, and they're essentially what they claim to be are the forefront of America's defenses, right? But defenses against what?
Exactly. Because I'm sorry, they didn't go and catch a fucking Osama bin Laden. Was that them?
I mean, maybe that wasn't.
They didn't go and
but maybe that's not high value enough for them. I mean, no, but I mean,
Bin Laden. I got better things to do with my time.
And that's also thinking that they actually caught Bin Laden and they didn't stage his death, because remember, they fucking rolled up on him in Pakistan. Right, I think it was Pakistan.
He was in a shitty farm, wasn't he?
They said they shot and killed him, and then they dumped his body in the ocean. Really?
Why would they do that?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Why?
Right.
It's
so
the most wanted fucking person.
Going into Osama bin Laden, if you think they actually caught him, I don't really think they caught him. I think it was a ploy. You don't just dump somebody's body like Osama bin Laden. I think they also said because they wanted to respect some sort of burial rights or some dumb shit.
Someone like that, I would think that you're gonna freeze their fucking ass. And you're going to keep him somewhere. I don't know.
But so that's if you... I can see that. I can see them being used for black operations. Things that people will never know about. Right, these are the soldiers who are going to go and carry out missions that nobody will ever hear about. The press will never hear about. They will never get credit for because technically they didn't exist.
That's
and
awful.
if they died doing this mission, sorry, nobody knows who you are. Right, you're not affiliated with the.
That's so fucking sad.
No, but I mean,
Like-
but I mean, think about it. If you're a country, you need to have some sort of task force like that.
No, I get it.
Some sort
I
of
get
task
it.
force that's going to get their hands dirty and do the job that you can't do in public.
But I'm just thinking, like, okay, it's not that you need validation and recognition for every single little thing that you do, but these people probably are risking their lives at a level that is unimaginable.
Yeah, of
so
course.
the fact that, yeah, cool, good job, but like, fuck you. No one can talk about this.
Yeah.
Forget about this.
Yeah.
Like, psychologically, holy fuck.
Well, but think about the kind of training and the vetting that they need to get these kind of people.
Yeah,
people
that's
like
true.
that. People like that exist, and they find these people because I guarantee you there are people who are willing to do this because they know that they are doing things and seeing things that nobody else on this planet, maybe 5 other people, will ever see or experience. But things you need people like that. You need those people to work in the shadows.
The only way that I would personally do it is if I had nothing going on for my life and I had nothing to lose.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they find, you know what? Like, I wouldn't put it past them to find orphan children that nobody wants. Right? And you have some sort of training. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You have these orphan children with no parents, no family. Nobody's going to miss them. Nobody's going to know that they've disappeared. And you sort of induct them into these highly specialized trainings where I'm sure some of them die doing it. And those that come out are literally the elite of the elite. And then those are the ones that you send out to handle the operations that you better hope nobody ever draws a line back to the U.S. that they've done it.
Okay, going a little bit in a crazier route and thinking about the fact that you said that the military, like you just said it, the military what? Military industrial
Military industrial complex.
Right. So they're 12,000 years advanced in technology.
Is what Phil claims is that they're.
Well, that's. I mean, theoretically.
Personally, just clear it up. I personally believe that they're about 100 years advanced.
Okay. Well, even whatever it is, even if they are 100 years advanced in technology, we're already cloning animals. We're already
that the public knows about.
Exactly, and we're already fabricating organs. In different things.
Test tube babies.
Correct. So
right?
Who the fuck is to say that they're using fucking orphans to that?
No.
They're probably making their own people.
Well, that's I'm sure. Whatever we have in the public sphere has already been beaten to death in the military sphere. They're already above that. They've gone beyond that.
They beat
right?
the dead dog.
They've beat it to... Oh, fucking cloning people is nothing. I can clone a fucking ass on your face. How about that?
God, can you imagine if
right?
one of those...
With 12 arms.
Can you imagine if one of those underground bases is like the Matrix when like Neo wakes up?
I don't fucking know.
Ah!
So, back to Phil.
Sorry, Phil. This is just crazy. Like your brain just explodes.
It sends you on a fucking crazy rabbit hole. And it's like... You start talking about one thing, and it's like you sort of draw in a what's it called?
Conclusions from common sense, honestly.
Yeah, but it's also it's like, okay, well, Phil's talking about deep underground bases, and it talks about linking up with caverns, and in caverns they say aliens live there. Well, that's kind of weird because the ancient Indians said that aliens came, or creatures or people came from underground, right? And then there's a hollow earth theory. Like you're drawing all of these you're sort of tying all this together, and it's really weird how it all sort of can come together.
Absolutely.
So, anyways, Phil goes on to explain that 4 holes were drilled in the desert that were to be linked together with tunnels. During the process, there were increasing issues with the equipment that kept coming up from underground. And eventually, out of the 4 shafts that had been dug, 2 began spewing this sort of black soot. So imagine like all this, black soot. You burn like something to a crisp.
Motor oil.
Yeah, and all this shit. Not oil, but like
no,
dust.
But I'm just thinking
soot,
that black-looking tar something.
Yeah, no, not tar. Like if you were to blow into like you had a campfire and you blew into the ash, that's all like soot, that black soot.
Oh, that's what that means?
Yeah.
So
like it started
a new word.
Yeah, so it started like pouring, and it started like shooting out of 2 of these super deep shafts. Oh, that's kind of weird, Phil thought. He had to investigate this. it was not normal, just to say, it was not normal for something like this to happen. So Phil was put in a protective suit for fear of radiation levels, which also kind of...
That's crazy.
Yeah, but
why the fuck do they do that in the middle of the earth?
Yeah, but why would there be radiation? Unless I'm thinking maybe the machinery that they were using, which was still down there, had the nuclear core or reactor or whatever they had in it. But I mean, even still. So, whatever. Well, they had protective suits around to begin with.
But then again, like, he's around this kind of machinery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
then what the fuck?
They had the suits to begin with. So maybe they had these suits for when they're doing work on the machine or whatever. I don't know. He didn't really go into detail. So he was put in a protective suit. He grabbed his pistol and he was lowered with a team down into the shaft to investigate what was happening. So just to put into perspective, these shafts aren't like a 3-foot in diameter hole. These are fucking huge 50-foot in diameter shafts. Like huge. They're huge, right? So the way you descend in and out of them is on like a lift, like a sort of makeshift elevator. Right? So he went down with the team to go check out what the fuck was happening down there. Basically, he went down a couple 100 feet. So apparently what had happened during the drilling and the boring process, the team accidentally bored into a large artificial cavern that had been a base for tall gray aliens. So think about that.
Whoa.
They fucking punctured into a cavern. And that's where that black soot was coming from. Right? So he went down there and these tall gray aliens. So one of the first things, if you watch his lectures, one of the first things that Phil mentions is that these aliens, they're mortal. They can be killed.
Yeah.
They can fucking die just like you and me. He says that when he entered this cavern, he entered these caverns, he saw 2 small grays and he immediately drew his pistol and he shot both of them. Immediately. Boom, boom. Gone. Done. Murked their ass. Clap those cheeks. Whatever you want to say.
Clap those cheeks.
That's
how you say it? Clap those cheeks?
I don't know. It just sounds fun.
That's hilarious.
An interesting thing that he actually talked about was their eyes. He said that they have these large black almond eyes, right? That you think of when you think of the gray aliens. You have these big, large black almond eyes.
Yeah.
He actually stated that one of the eyes from the alien that he killed, the black lens covering their eye, because it's actually a lens, he claims, popped out, and it revealed what their eyes really looked like. He said that their eyes are actually yellow with a black strip in the middle of it, like a cat or a reptile's eyes. And that he claims that they wear the lens to protect their eyes because their eyes are so sensitive to the light here on Earth. And that literally their eyes can only tolerate this sort of pinkish, hueish light. Right, okay. That's the only light. So everything else, they need these lenses. So he shot and killed these 2 little aliens. Right, this sort of sparked a firefight between the Secret Service, the Delta Force, the workers, and the Greys. So it's like an all-out fucking war. Right? Yeah. Everybody fucking popping off, killing each other, la 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 la.
Clapping cheeks and shit.
Clapping cheeks. Everybody's clapping each other's cheeks.
Sounds like I'm gonna see dollar bills flying everywhere.
So Phil asserts that after taking down the 2 aliens he was confronted with, a third one appeared, and he showed up and he was unarmed. But he began to motion over its stomach in a clockwise manner, sort of like if you're going to rub your belly, like
you're really
this meal is so good, and you're rubbing over your stomach in a clockwise manner. But he was doing it about 6 inches off of his stomach, right? He's moving his hand in this clockwise manner. And he said after doing it, a bright blue energy beam struck Schneider, cut open his stomach, burned his foot to a crisp. It vaporized 3 of his fingers on the left hand. He was literally dying there. He was dying.
Wow.
He claimed that a Green Beret dragged him onto the shaft elevator after this happened and sent him back up, essentially saving his life. While that soldier continued to fight, very soon after dying himself to the similar energy beam that had struck Schneider. This fucking guy saved Phil's life and then got blasted himself with the same kind of beam, and he died. This firefight took the lives of over 60 human beings, he says. All workers, Secret Service, Delta Force, soldiers, everybody. 60 people died. In Phil's own words, this is what he said. As I was headed down there, we found ourselves amidst a large cavern that was full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as large grays. I shot 2 of them. A pat on the back. At that time, there were 30 people down there. About 40 more came down after this started, and all of them got killed. We had surprised a whole underground base of existing aliens.
Wow.
Later, we found out that they had been living on our planet for a long time, perhaps 1,000,000 years. This could explain a lot of what is behind the theory of ancient astronauts. Anyway, I got shot in the chest with one of their weapons, which was a box on their body that blew a hole in me and gave me a nasty dose of cobalt radiation. I have had cancer because of that, end quote. I don't think I actually opened the quotes, but I'm ending them. So, that's what Phil said.
I believe it because in the video he looks fucked.
The guy's fucked up.
Like
yeah, in the video,
he looks like there's something seriously wrong with him.
No,
like his face, he's missing fingers.
Yeah,
he
you could
looks
see it. Yeah.
Fucked.
He's missing his 3 fingers. You could see the guy's fucked up.
Like there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
It's clear.
So Phil goes on to say he was furious that the U.S. government knowingly sent American citizens down into an area where there was alien life without warning them. Right? He said that the U.S. was at war with these subterranean extraterrestrials who had apparently been underground for centuries, and that it was not just the U.S., it was countries all over the world fighting the same kind of wars. Phil was not a stranger to alien life before this encounter. He believed that there were a number of alien species here on Earth working with or against the people of the world. And many of the places the benevolent ones would be housed, benevolent being the good ones, would be facilities like the underground base in Dulce. Other accounts have described the underground installations to be at least 7 levels deep, with the levels as follows. So I kind of ran those sentences together, but so he says, right? My reading and speaking skills aren't too hot tonight.
It's all right. I can't say I'm any better, so it's fine.
No, so yeah, he said that basically the good species that want to come and help us are working in conjunction with the U.S. government and other governments along the world, and they actually reside here on the planet with us and help us technologically or whatever. And again, this ties into Valiant Thor. You've heard of Valiant Thor? The alien from fucking...
that guy!
Who's like... who can live to be like 500 or 600 years old, and
yeah,
he looks just like a human being.
Yeah, he's all over pictures and shit. Yeah. I've seen his pictures. It's weird.
So I mean, and again, here's another theory that sort of ties in with what Phil's saying, right? So these underground bases, some have been described to be at least 7 levels deep, right? This is what I ran into. These are the sentences that I ran together with the other one. Some have been described to have the levels as followed. The first level is the security and communications level. The second level is the human staff housing level, so where all the human beings live. The third level is where they say the execs and labs are. The fourth level they claim is where the mind control experimentations take place.
Project.
Which is a pretty trippy place to be.
Bluebird Project.
5 is where the aliens live. The different species. They live on the 5th level.
Men in Black.
Well, no, I think they live on level 2. Level 6, which is they call it Nightmare Hall, which I'll talk a little bit about. But it's also where they do the genetic experimentations. And the 7th level is where they say the cryogenic storage is.
Where you can find Einstein and fucking that Nazi fucker.
Which one?
I'm just being a pain in the ass. I'm just saying, if it's a cryogenic storage, I'm sure Albert Einstein is in there, along with fucking... What is his fucking name, that Nazi motherfucker?
Who? There's a bunch of them.
That piece of shit.
The's a bunch of them that are pieces of shit.
The one in charge of the whole fucking thing.
Adolf Hitler?
There we go.
Why the fuck would they want to kill him?
Why
would they want to keep him?
Why wouldn't they want to freeze him?
Why would they want to freeze him? He's not fucking... They want the geniuses. They don't want fucking Hitler. They want the fucking scientific geniuses, the scientists.
Maybe Tesla's in there too.
Maybe. With Walt Disney. Yeah.
He wasn't an
Imagineer. They have a bunch of Imagineers living on the 8th level.
Wasn't he like a fucking... Never mind. That's not like a... Don't worry. I don't want to deviate so much.
So, level 6, they've called it the Nightmare Hall. A little bit about that. That's where they say all the genetic experiments take place. A number of animals are claimed to be tested on, like bats, seals, mice, birds, dogs.
Thank you, military bases, for the fucking coronavirus.
Well, yeah. These creatures are vastly changed from their original forms in these experiments, with some bat-like creatures ranging as tall as 7 feet, he claims. This has prompted actually some people to believe that the Mothman might have come from a similar base, or other strange creatures that are seen.
Do you think Chupacabra came from there?
Maybe. or the Montauk Monster, stuff like that.
True.
Maybe even Bigfoot. He also claims that, or not him, but other people, I think another person or two other people have come out and talked about these bases. I don't remember their names because this isn't about them. It's about Phil.
It's about our boy Phil.
So, but they claim that 1 million human embryos and body parts are stored in these cryogenic freezers, and multi-limbed humans are kept in these cages.
Gosh.
Down there. Multi-limbed humans. That's pretty crazy.
I need that for work. Sometimes I don't have enough fucking hands.
So, Phil, like I said, Phil believed that there's 7 specific alien races that were here to help mankind, and 4 were evil, malevolent. His theory suggests that the U.S. government signed 4 treaties with the aliens, specifically the Greys, in 1944, in 1954, 1962, and 1979. These treaties basically would allow the Greys to abduct a small number of humans in exchange for some of their technology. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't sound like a lot of people, but I mean, it's kind of highly immoral. Highly immoral, unethical, you know?
Yeah, but then again, I feel like the Greys were like, yeah, here's a treaty, go fuck yourselves.
Which is basically what happened, right? I mean, these aliens are basically like, it's like if we go make a deal with fucking a cow, right? Nobody fucking cares. You know, who gives a fuck if the cows are mad at us?
Yeah.
We slaughter them anyways. Back in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, this is what the Greada Treaty was. Back in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the federal government decided to circumvent the Constitution of the United States and form a treaty with alien entities. It was called the 1954 Greada Treaty, which basically made the agreement that the aliens involved could take a few cows and test their implanting techniques on a few human beings, but that they had to give details about the people who were involved. Slowly, the aliens began to alter the bargain until they decided they wouldn't abide by it at all.
Of course, they're the fucking bad guys.
Surprise. Wow.
Fucking
Who saw that
idiots.
coming? Right? So, the 10 species that I could find through doing a little digging that he believed and other people believed, they sort of all coincided with each other, right? You look at a bunch of different sources and it's all more or less the same. The first one are the Zeta Reticuli, the Greys. Then they're the little green men. Then there are the Nordic aliens who look like humans, but they have blonde hair. Then there are the Pleiadians, very pleasant, peace-loving race. They also look like human beings. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They don't look like human beings. These are like somebody else. Then there are the Andromedans. They're telepathic. They resemble human beings. Then there are the Reptilians, who
NWO.
Yeah, exactly. Who people believe are all the political leaders of the world or live underground or whatever. Then there are the Alpha Draconians, who are some of the most hostile aliens that they believe. They're incredibly corrupt, and they are giant reptilians ranging anywhere from 6 feet to 22 feet tall.
Ew.
What the fuck is that?
You know what? Whenever I think of the reptilians, you know what I think of? Remember that show in the 80s called V? No. Alien Invasion? You don't remember?
No.
It was like all of a sudden in Earth there would be like there's just a spaceship comes and everybody's like freaking out, and then when they get out of the spaceship they look like people and everybody's like, oh cool, whatever. But what they don't know is that they're reptilians. And they
shapeshifted?
Yeah, I mean, so it's like if they wear human suits. I used to watch it when I was little. Like, it's crazy, and I'm never gonna forget this image from this show. You see this beautiful woman, and all of a sudden I think her eyes go yellow, and they look like a reptile, and there's a cage full of canaries, and she grabs a canary and shoves it in her mouth and eats it, because they're reptilians, they're not people.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that show was pretty fucking crazy. It was called V.
Wow. No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they're the reptilians. Apparently the reptilians and the Alpha Draconians are different. What the difference is, I'm not really sure. Then there are the Syrian aliens who claim to come from the Sirius star system. They are humanoid-like creatures, and they prefer to be around water. Then, yeah, well...
That sounds like something right straight out of Zelda. You know, when you're like in the Temple of the Water?
Yeah. Then, I mean, a lot of these sound like they're straight out of video games.
Yeah.
But
oh, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, then there's the Anunnaki, right? The ancient Sumerians used to worship them. They look like humans, said to have come from the 12th planet in our solar system, beyond Pluto,
yeah.
You know, which is yet to be discovered. Which, I don't know, is that what they say what Planet X is?
Yeah.
Is that what
It's
it is?
supposed to be out there,
That their
but we
orbit, their
can't.
orbit is so huge that we can't find it or
We
something?
can't see it exactly. We see like a shadow of it or some weird shit like that. Also, like the Anunnaki were supposed to have like different, like some of them had anthropomorphic
Oh, you mean like the
characteristics.
snake head and the dog head?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got you. And then the last one I could find were the Arcturians, who are supposed to be 4 to 5 feet tall, large heads, blue skin. They are allegedly the most ancient race in the Milky Way. So, yeah. So that's just a nice little side note. So, for the last 2 years of his life, the main way Phil tried to spread his message was through giving lectures and tours. You can see in his lectures he's clearly missing those fingers. You could see the scars on him. And not only that, he had a multitude of other issues with him. This is all according to his ex-wife, right? Now, they separated amicably because apparently his injuries were so debilitating that they just completely interfered with his relationship with him.
Wow.
And, so his wife, they separated and his daughter lives with her. But at the time, she said that he needed to wear a full body brace at times, a leg brace. He needed a bladder bag, a catheter, diapers. He needed to move in a wheelchair sometimes.
Oh my God.
And he had terminal cancer in his arms, in his body, which is strange because that's where he said he got shot by this blue beam, right?
Yeah.
His body was riddled with shrapnel wounds.
What is that?
Shrapnel is like when a grenade explodes, the little pieces of metal.
Oh, Jesus Lord.
He had a metal plate in his head with metal fragments lodged in his brain.
God.
He would constantly tell the audience that he had his life threatened multiple times, from being ran off the road to being shot in the shoulder, which he actually came to a lecture like weeks after he got shot or days after he got shot, and he took off his shirt and you could see where this fucking guy got shot in the shoulder.
My God,
still
dude.
bleeding a little bit. And that he also said that if he ever ended up dead via suicide, it would be because he was murdered. He was in the process of writing a book that would detail everything he had seen and uncovered while working on these black ops. In January 1996, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment in Wilsonville, Oregon by his friend Al Pratt. Phil suspected something was wrong after he didn't hear...
No.
Al
did.
Sorry.
Poor Phil was already dead, dude.
Phil suspected something was wrong when he was dead.
I can't breathe. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. No, Al suspected something was wrong after he hadn't heard from Phil for about 5 days. So, he contacted the police, he contacted his landlord, and they went into his apartment. Phil had died due to a rubber surgical hose wrapped around his neck 3 times, causing the blood flow to be blocked to his brain, killing him.
I'm sorry. That's just fucking weird.
Yeah, so
Who kills themselves like that?
Yeah, so guess what Phil's death was ruled as?
That's just fucking suicide, of course.
Suicide. The positioning of his body was curious. His feet were under his bed. His head was laying in his wheelchair seat at an unusual angle. The rest of his body was on his floor, and his hands were by his side. Blood was found near the wheelchair, on the floor, but not on the wheelchair itself, and no wounds were found on his body to account for the blood loss. And no suicide note was found.
Okay, I'm sorry. When did he die?
In January 1996.
Okay. So there was no analysis of the blood that they found. There was no forensic work done to the scene. Nothing.
Nope.
That's fucked up.
Nope. Nothing.
So nobody knows whose fucking blood that was. Nobody fucking dusted her fingerprints.
I don't know if they tested the blood, but what they were saying is there was blood next to the wheelchair. But if there's blood on the wheelchair, if there's blood next to the wheelchair, why is there no blood on the wheelchair? Right?
Was there any blood on him?
Well, no. I think they were saying there's blood on the floor, but
no,
not
I
on the
understand,
wheelchair.
but on the wheelchair. But what I want to know is, was there blood on him?
Oh, I didn't.
I
didn't
doubt
read
it, because from what you're telling me, sounds like
that there was no blood anywhere else other than the floor. Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? He died because he allegedly choked himself with this surgical tube. But why would you be bleeding because of that?
That's what I'm saying. And I'm sorry, but I doubt that people that want to commit suicide are going to do that to themselves. It's easier for you to hang something from a taller structure, like the ceiling or whatever, make a noose, and then you just jump off.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it yourself. Do you see yourself strangling yourself because you want to kill yourself?
Fuck that.
Hell no. For that matter, you shoot yourself.
Yeah, you take a bunch of pills.
Think about it, or that. Like, think about the time that it takes for you to die from asphyxiation. It's not that fast.
No, I know.
That's crazy. That's fucking crazy.
No suicide note was found. Another interesting observation was that all of his lecture materials, the unknown medals that he had, because what he would do is on his tours, he'd bring pictures, he'd bring materials.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on the video.
Yeah, he'd bring these materials that nobody had ever seen or that weren't from this earth. I can't stress enough that you guys need to see these YouTube documentaries.
It's really
of his tours.
interesting.
I mean, he's got metals not of the earth. It's crazy. The things that he talks about, and just by listening to him, this guy's so he could be crazy, right? Obviously, I can't say 100% that he's right, but he could be fucking crazy. But he's incredibly intelligent.
Yeah, but then again,
the way he speaks, the way he talks, like, this guy's intelligent. You know he's worked for the army as a civilian. You know he's worked for these engineering companies. I mean, it's crazy.
But think about it like this also. Like, okay, it might sound crazy to us because we don't know the truth. But he's, how many times that has happened through history? That somebody has said, hey, listen, this is happening. And everyone's like, yeah, you're full of shit.
And
you're
then 20
fucking
years
crazy.
later,
And then boom,
out,
here it is.
Yeah. So, all the unknown medals he had, notes from his unwritten book, military photographs, all of that was missing from his apartment. But his ex-wife noted, because his ex-wife had to go through his stuff, obviously, nothing of value was taken. All the money was left there. Nothing was touched. And it should be mentioned that the police and medical examiners never finished their investigation into his death. They never finished it. They sort of just came in, said it was a suicide, and that's it.
That's fucked.
So his ex-wife, her name is Cynthia Marie Dreyer Simon, believes he was murdered, as do many people familiar with his story. She goes on to say that she thinks that Phil was met by someone he was familiar with and injected with a drug to incapacitate him. That is when they tied the hose around his neck to kill him. Was Philip Schneider murdered for revealing the truth?
Of course he was. And you know what? God bless his soul, and I'm sure he's somewhere, like, living the life in another place. But he should have written that book before doing his tours.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like those fucking villains from those movies who it's like, here, let me tell you, the hero, my entire plan for killing you and defeating the government and taking over the world. Let me tell you everything. Oh shit, you escaped and then you foiled my plan because I told you everything? Oh fuck.
Yeah.
He should have fucking written the book first.
He should have done that. He should have done that and giving it to someone that...
Or released it and then did his tours.
That, or maybe, I don't know.
But I mean, maybe he didn't think he would have been killed as fast as he was.
I don't know. I really don't know what to think.
But this is the crazy thing. Here's a guy talking all about all this crazy shit, how there's underground bases and aliens living underground. Oh, let me talk about the janitors. So this is...
It's
but I want to talk about this because I was reading somewhere else about these bases, and they said that the aliens are a caste system, just like in these underground bases. It's sort of like a caste system,
just like
depending on your species, right? You perform certain tasks, right? So from what I read, I by no means think maybe it's true, I don't know, but I'm just saying it. From what I read, that the reptilians are considered the custodians of these bases, where they're the ones who are responsible for cleaning up and all that shit. But it's not like cleaning toilets, right? They maintain apparently what they maintain, like the base integrity, like they clean up, like and whatever the fuck else that means. So wait,
no. What the fuck does that mean? What? Okay, they're not cleaning toilets, but what are they doing?
Certain aliens have certain jobs in the base. I can sort of imagine that if you have a more higher IQ, more intelligent alien species, you'd probably want that species working in like the genetic experimentation.
Yeah, of course.
And
but
that.
I'm sorry,
and then the lower IQ, but I can't imagine how low their IQ could be if
they're fucking aliens.
Stuff. Well, But then again, hold on a second, because some of these aliens, like Phil Schneider and some people theorize, have been living in Earth for thousands, maybe even more years. So if they're no longer a spacefaring civilization, they could have sort of been dumbed down. Okay. And while they are alien to us, I mean, maybe they're as intelligent as we are or less intelligent. Who knows? That's true. So you have them doing the fucking grunt work, and you have the higher intelligent species working in technological advancements and genetic experimentation. Who knows? Yeah. But here you have a man who is verified to have worked with a well-known engineering company, known to have worked with the U.S. government, has 2 social security numbers, who claims he was fucking zapped by a blue laser beam which sheared off 3 of his fingers and cut him open from his belly button up to his neck, who's covered in shrapnel, metal plates in his head, riddled with cancer.
Crispy fried his foot.
Yeah, crispy fried his foot. I mean, this guy's fucked up. And to be working for the government, they're not going to bring somebody on that already is like that.
Of course not.
Right? They're going to have people in their peak physical condition. So what the fuck happened to this guy between working with the government and the time he died that all this shit happened?
I want to see a picture of him before
he started you can see his photos, his death photos. I've seen them.
The death photos?
The photos they took of him when he was dead.
No.
When they found him. You can see him.
What does he look like?
He's in his underwear with fucking surgical tubes wrapped around his neck, bright blue and purple.
No, okay, but what about the wounds? Like the rest of the body?
It was like his face and his body, and you can see him like slouch on the wheelchair. It's fucking sad.
Okay, but what about before? Like before, I would love to see pictures of him before he started working for the government. I would like to see him as a normal person, because when you see him in the lectures, he doesn't look noral.
No, he looks like he's been fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see what he looks like as a normal person. But I can 100%, well, not, I can 99.99% say that the government will not take somebody on to work in the conditions that they needed him to work in, fucked with cancer,
absolutely,
with a metal plate in his head, missing 3 fingers, fucking a scar from him being ripped open from his belly button to his neck, his fucking foot fried in a wheelchair. That doesn't happen.
That guy will do.
Throw him down the shaft.
Yeah, only one crispy fried foot. That's fine.
Please go investigate this rock strata for me. Roll his ass down the fucking tube.
Go find that nucleus, boy.
Good luck. Bye. No, but something happened to this guy.
And then the aliens. What the fuck is this?
Fucking roll his ass back up.
How am I supposed to fucking experiment on this shit? What are you talking about? What is this?
No, but I mean that's one of the biggest pieces of evidence that sort of plays in his favor. Is this guy so fucked up? He's so fucked up. What happened to him?
Yeah, and like there's a lot of deaths of like known people that have been whistleblowers for different things, or people that have been involved in the government one way or another, and they have mysteriously fucking died. I don't want to get started on the list, but there's a shitload of people.
So, that is who Phil Schneider was, and those are D.U.M.B.s.
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
mind-blowing.
Yeah, this guy's life was very interesting. So that will do it.
Not only that his life was interesting, I think what's interesting is his death wasn't in vain. He has, whoever it is that has taken the time to find out about him like we have, it has put that little grain of curiosity and wonder.
Seed. Yeah, they planted the seed. Yeah.
And I feel like at the end of the day, he did what he set out to do. Yeah. So kudos.
So again, that is episode 6.
Yeah.
Who is Phil Schneider and what are D.U.M.B.s? So we've hoped we've enlightened you a little bit, maybe opened up a little bit of a rabbit hole for you to go down. Oh, now we're on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So if you like to sit and stare at a pretty Miami landscape picture and listen to us, by all means, especially since everybody's now stuck inside with the coronavirus, make sure you put us on a repeat and we can be your only friends for the next 2 weeks. So you can hear us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, Stitcher. Please help us out. Leave us a rating, 5 stars.
Yes,
Subscribe,
like,
share.
subscribe.
You know, the
Exactly.
whole spiel.
The whole shebang. And also, I'm gonna be posting some stuff related to the episode on Instagram
Yeah.
and Facebook, and that we have a Facebook group going on. We have a Facebook page if you want to join and
The
check it
Facebook
out.
page,
Yeah, so like
And we can be fine. We can be fine. Yeah, we're pretty fine.
I will.
We can be found at the Vice City Podcast on all the platforms, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
All
yeah,
but
guys.
Snapchat. We're old, so we don't do fucking
No,
Snapchat.
No, fuck that shit.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Or
alright.
fucking TikTok. Fuck that shit.
Can you
I'm
imagine?
sorry. Fuck that shit. I don't have time for that. TikTok my ass.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it.
No offense for the ones that like it. Sorry. It's just me. All right, I'm going to shut up.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep it real. Keep it weird.
We'll see you. No, actually, we won't see you, but you'll hear us soon. Stay safe.
Stay safe in Vice City.